It's been a long time coming, but in this video, I'm going to be doing my June truck update. We're going to talk about maintenance I performed on the truck, any modifications that I made, and how many miles I drove. I decided in this video, I'm going to start sharing my maintenance spreadsheet with you. I have a spreadsheet, it's Google Sheets, you could use Excel sheets, but where I essentially log all the maintenance items that I complete. So in this month, we had 4 items, so 4 days where I was doing work on the truck, and I'll typically log all the items completed and then the mileage, I'll add any notes, and then the date it was performed. So that's typically how I lay that out. I realize I've kind of been gatekeeping that sheet layout, so if you have interest in copying it, please feel free, but I will put it up on the screen so you can follow along. And it's nice because when it's in Google Sheets, I can share it with my wife, I can share it with any, if I had a mechanic. It just makes it easy to keep everyone on the same page if you're sharing the vehicle in a family or with another individual. All right, so the first maintenance items, it was kind of a fat day, but my brother and I, Oliver, did the front axle seals. So the dust seals on my front axle, the outer ones, were smoked after a year. I mean, granted, they'd probably seen about 70,000 miles in the last 12 months, but I'm not gonna quibble over that. We replaced those. We replaced the locking hubs, and my old locking hubs still worked, but they were the originals. What was it? At this juncture, the truck had 162,000, so they had 160,000 miles on them, and the fronts were really scuffed, and they just didn't look good. So I just wanted to replace them, and so we did. We rotated the tires, greased the front end, that's all pretty standard, and then we drained and filled the primary and secondary cooling reservoirs. So primary being your engine radiator, secondary being the cooling system for the turbo. And then we changed the engine oil and filter, and I also installed new plate lights. So I have a video on the channel, I reviewed the Morimoto plate lights, but I was tired of changing out the bulbs in the plate lights because they're kind of a pain in the ass to get to. So I just got Morimoto ones for $37 and threw them in. All of those maintenance items occurred on June 3rd. Then on June 11th, I drove up to Detroit and saw Mr. PTT, and he replaced my DPF pressure sensor. I had been having issues with the truck regenning at like 150 miles, and it was really annoying, and I had a bunch of people tell me that my DPF was smoked and I needed a new one. Turns out it was just a sensor. It was like a $130 part or $150 part, I don't quite remember, but yeah, very cheap. So if you're having that issue, don't replace your DPF, do the pressure sensor first. June 19th, I had all 4 tires balanced because I was getting a little bit of a shimmy at like 70 miles an hour. It wasn't big, but I hadn't had the tires balanced in about 40,000 miles, so I figured, hey, it's probably time to get them rebalanced. On June 21st, I actually replaced some of the hood bumpers. So your Super Duty hood has the latch system, and then there's a couple rubber bumpers that press into little eyelets in the bottom of your hood. And I was missing all of them. So when I'd be driving down the interstate, if it was really windy, the hood would be like flapping up and down, and it was really obnoxious. And then I realized when I was at A-Rod's shop, he had another truck in there, and I saw it had all its hood bumpers in, and I was like, wow, mine doesn't have any of those. So I just went on Tasca Parts and bought them and stuck them in. So those were the things I did in June for maintenance. I guess the only modification would then be that, I did the Morimoto plate lights. So I guess that's kind of a mod. I got rid of the stock OEM housings. Morimoto makes it so you get the LEDs in the housing. You just have to plug a cord into the OEM plug and you're good to go. It's a really nice setup, and I just got tired of replacing plate lights, honestly. It was, it's one of those things where like some people are like, why would you upgrade your plate lights? But to me, as someone who drives commercial, I'm trying to give a DOT officer or a state trooper the least number of reasons to pull me over, and having a plate light out is like police officers' MO. It's like what they use to pull people over. And it also just indicates you don't have your shit together. You're not high and tight in terms of having your maintenance dialed, and so a DOT officer would see that and be like, well, this guy didn't do his pre-trip inspection, or he didn't fix this, so I'm gonna stop him because he probably has other shit wrong with his rig. So, you know, it's just one of those things where you can reduce the hassle you have to go through if you just keep all your shit high and tight, and that's how I like to roll. In terms of miles driven, the current odometer reading on my truck is about 172,456. The last time I did an update, the miles was closer to 162. So I've done about 10,124 miles since the last update. And I actually just sent a sample out to Speed Diagnostics. I had an oil change, and that oil had 10,200 miles on it. So a lot of miles, and I'm interested to see what I get back from the lab. I guess the only other thing I've kind of come across in the last month since my last maintenance update, because it's now July, is that I realized that some of the fuel dilution I was seeing in my oil testing could be from the increased level of biodiesel that I'm running through the truck, because I'm using an Open Roads fuel discount card. So I fill up at fuel stations where the big trucks do, where the road tractors do. And so I'm using, you know, up to like a 20% biodiesel blend, and that will cause fuel dilution, and it results in you needing to change your oil more often. Now, I'm totally fine with changing my oil at 8 to 10,000 miles. I know some people that run AMSOIL will go up to 20,000 miles, but I'm really curious what the 10,200 mile oil sample is going to come back with in terms of wear, in terms of fuel dilution, in terms of oxidation value. It'll just be really interesting to see. So be sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed, and just follow the oil testing. I also have a playlist I made for the oil testing that I've been doing, and it has the videos with the tests in there. So if you want to just watch those, that's there. But I mean, in all intents and purposes, I replaced the DPF pressure sensor. The truck is running great. My last regen cycle was like at 500 miles, so my DPF is performing exceptionally well, and I found that it will just regen itself at about 500 miles. It seems like Ford has that like hard coded into the PCM, where even if my DPM filter percentage is at like 85%, once I get to 500 miles, it's doing a regen regardless. But it makes me feel good that like I'm not filling up the filter. And, you know, really the only time I am doing that is with the biodiesel that I'm running. But it seems like that biodiesel fuel is more in the Midwest, and I've moved back to New Hampshire since my last update. My wife is working in New Hampshire now, so we were in Missouri after being in Denver. So now we're back east, and thankfully New England has really good quality diesel fuel, so I've been taking advantage of that. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that this channel has grown, and I'm really grateful that I can share what I've learned about my PowerStroke, but also learn a lot from folks leaving comments. So I really appreciate you watching this video. Thank you for being a subscriber, and we're just going to keep rolling here on PowerStroke Maintenance. Cheers.